Middleton. My name is Heidel Summers. I am the chairman for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Will the deputy clerk please do a roll call of the commissioners?
Chairman Summers.
Present.
Vice Chair Christiansen.
Present.
Commissioner Crofts. Commissioner Tremble. Commissioner Watkins.
Present.
And do we have a quorum so that we can proceed?
Yes, we do.
Okay. This is the time lawfully noticed for hearing scheduled for the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Middleton, Idaho, according to the posted agenda. The deputy clerk has confirmed we have a quorum present to hear the scheduled agenda. So we will just move forward with the agenda items. So our first item on the agenda, action item, is to consider approving the minutes for the May 8th, 2023 regular meeting. Did anybody see anything that we need to address?
Chair, I read, I didn't find any corrections or deviations from what so I would like to make a motion to approve
Okay.
May 8th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
So I have a motion from Commissioner Christiansen. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Watkins to approve the minutes for the May 8th, 2023 regular meeting. Do I take a vote?
No.
No? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to our next action item on our agenda. This is a public meeting. We are going to consider approval of the design review application for Middleton Drug and Pharmacy proposed for a parcel located at 324 Boise Street. Are we going to be hearing this today?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Okay, Commission. As you know, my name is Doug Waterman. I'm one of the city attorneys. Roberta's not able to be here tonight, so I'm filling in for her. So we're going to limp along as best we can. This is not the typical role that I fill, but we'll do our best to get through. And I think that the meeting tonight, the items on the agenda, that will be all right. So this is a design review application. This is one of those items, like special use permits, on which the commission makes a decision rather than a recommendation. It would of course be appealed, but design review is also not a public hearing, it's a public meeting. So the applicant presents and the staff presents, and you can ask questions, that sort of thing, but you don't take public comment on it. Before we get into it, the criteria for approval or denial of a design review permit are found in Middleton City Code 1-15-8-5, and they are looking to both architectural quality and circulation design as the two categories for the criteria. And I won't read all of them because they are in the code and you're familiar with them, but you're looking for building characteristics, continuity of color, whether or not that goes well with the surrounding buildings, exterior lighting, and whether that's well designed, garbage storage areas. And then for circulation design, you're looking at traffic flow and pathways and making sure that all makes sense. I won't provide much in the way of specific information about the application. The applicant is here tonight, is going to be more qualified and versed in this than I am by a wide margin. But in broad strokes, this is a rehabilitation remodel of the building that's located at 324 Boise Street. It appears that used to be PC Tech Inc., as well as potentially Idaho Home Squad. It's there. It's just southwest of Ridley's. In your staff report, you can see the renderings. If you scroll down there,
One more.
yeah, you can see renderings of what the proposed exterior will look like in terms of the architectural features and facades, material components, things like that. If you go even further, so that's category one. Category 2, this is the proposed traffic flow. The pharmacy intends to have a drive-through component so that people can come and obtain their pharmaceuticals at a drive-up window, and the traffic flow here is set up to permit that to happen. And so that's all laid out there. At this point, I don't have any other comments. At the very last page of the staff report are the proposed conditions of approval. I'm not seeing in here whether or not the applicant is amenable to those, but the applicant can address that. They include things like the lighting being downlit, complying with engineering and planning comments, complying with fire department requirements, building code, public works, storm facility, landscaping. So that's the application that's before you, and at this point, I would recommend the transition to hearing from the applicant, asking your questions, unless you have some questions for me, and then you can discuss and make a decision.
Okay, I do have one question. There is a current building there. Is this just a kind of a remodel of that current building?
Commission, my understanding is, yes, this is a remodel of the existing building. There may be some internal remodeling as well, but it is not going to change the footprint of the building. So the exterior walls will remain the same. I believe there may be a architectural sort of eave or awning put up with the word pharmacy on top. That appears to be true based upon the staff report. But based on what I'm seeing here, and the applicant can verify this, there are no movements of the exterior of those four walls. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, anybody have questions for staff?
I'm good.
Nope. Okay, is the applicant here for us? Okay, would you like to please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and do we give him a time limit to present?
Commission, there's no time limit in the code or in the state code. Time limits are typically employed by, it's a standard thing for commissions to employ, and so I know that Middleton's mayor typically will ask the applicant if 5 or 10 minutes is sufficient, and then sort of hold them to that and keep the meeting moving in that way.
Okay. Will 5 or 10 minutes work okay for you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let's hear your presentation.
My name is Isaac Josvik. I live at 104 Fern Court, Parma. We are here today to present for the design review, proposing the remodel for a pharmacy which has drive-through and walk-in components to it. It's located, as we stated, on the corner of Boise Street and Middleton Road. The current zoning for the lot is mixed use, and this being commercial use, it fits within that zoning requirement. The zoning around it is also mixed use to the north, and then there's residential directly to the west, south, and east. It's approximately 0.23 acres. No change to the lot. There is, as stated in the staff report, the setback on the west side of the property doesn't meet code, but since there's no changes to the footprint, that is acceptable. As there is no changes to the footprint, there is changes to the building, improvements we're hoping to make. As you can see in the exhibits on the architectural sheets, there's the gable part of the roof on the south side is being extended over the hip side of the roof. So it's the same on both the north and south sides.
But can you go to the rendering for us so we can kind of explain?
I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I think it's down at the bottom in the exhibits. If you stop right there, that's the existing building. You go up a little bit. You can see there's a lower part of the roof on the left side. That higher portion that's gabled, it's going to be extended all the way out to match the south side of the building. And then on the east side that faces Middleton Road, there's going to be a dormer that sticks out where they'll be able to place signage on the side of the building. As far as the use of the building, it was previously computer service repair building, and then also real estate office space. Also, as far as the building modifications, fitting in with the surrounding areas, there's a picture in the staff report showing the building across the street, which is going to be, we're going to make significant improvements to kind of match that with stone siding, stucco, timber in the gables. And then as far as the site access and parking, we're keeping the same amount of parking that meets code requirements. There's 5 parking spots on the south side of the building, which will be for customer parking. And then the site is oriented, so there's a drive-through for the building, which is one way. And then access on the north side of the building will be for employees only, with parking spaces there. There is modifications to the site. The existing driveway is at an angle, which is not suited well for the drive-through, so the driveway was moved to the south and oriented perpendicular to the Middleton Road. There was a traffic study done for the intersection of Boise and Middleton, to make sure there wasn't going to be impact currently or for future turning movements. There is a current 2-way turn lane on Middleton Road that allows for a left turn into the site off of Middleton Road. There is currently sewer and water all service to the building, which won't be changed. There's also a landscape plan included with design review that just keeps with the existing style, mainly along the western part of the property, which borders the residential lot. On the east side of the property along Middleton, that's actually City of Middleton property, and it's all currently rock. It's planning on leaving that the same. And there is no changes to the conditions put in the design review, so no edits there. Any questions?
So the conclusions and recommended conditions of approval, you're fine with all of those? They're listed here. Looks like there's 7 listed here. The landscape must be installed by 5/20. Has the landscape been installed then?
I think it was per the landscape plan, it stated 5/20.
Oh, dated 5/20. Gotcha. Okay, that's important.
Yeah.
It's an important piece of information. So then everything else was, your lighting is downlit. I didn't see any engineering and planning comments, but that's gonna come, looks like during the building permit phase, probably when you're doing your remodel. Didn't see anything else. The parking lot, I did have a question about that. So the part that is paved for the drive-through, that's gonna be new, correct? Or is that already there?
There is paving there currently
For the drive-through?
for the drive-through, but it will be redone as well as part of the south parking area and then the north side of the building as well.
Okay, and then how many approximate staff are expected to be there, and how many staff parking spaces do you expect to have?
Currently, it's planned for a maximum of 3 employees, with potential for that to grow in the future. And there is no planned striping on the north side of the building, but there is adequate parking on that side of the building.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have comments for the applicant?
I do have a couple of questions. Yes.
Go ahead.
Back onto the, in fact, I don't know, are you in our presentation or the applicant's?
I can pull up.
Page 5 of our application, or
Page
excuse me, of our agenda would be great. On the parking lot, I'm trying to envision a little bit more clearly the picture of the current building and the picture, or excuse me, the plan of what you're going to do as it relates. You mentioned the setback or the footprint is not going to be changed. You know, I don't know if you can point out on slide 5 what you're talking about on which footprint is not currently the code, or which boundary, or
Yeah, the setback for the existing
Yeah, right
building
there.
on the west side, so it's the top of the
okay,
drawing.
yeah. Commissioner Heidel pointed out. Okay, so I don't have a concern with that. I am looking at. I'll find it here. Page 1. Slide down just a little bit. I don't know if you can enlarge that picture of the bottom half. So the picture I'm looking at there, the bottom picture, is what is currently the parking lot or the area around the building. And so I'm trying to envision that the drive-through is going to be on the east side of the building, correct?
Correct.
And the area that's going to be paved will be in addition to what you show paved as you turn into the current building. I'm just making sure that the area also to the north of that is going to be paved. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, correct.
Okay. You mentioned also that, and this is clarifying questions on my part, not to. The area to the east of the building that is gravelled, you said is owned by the city of Middleton, did I hear you correctly?
Yes, I think it was supposed to be future right-of-way for Middleton Road, prior to the new alignment of Middleton Road.
Okay, so if you go back to slide 5 again. Slide 5.
I'm on 5.
Oh, sorry. So the kind of darker blue color gray, that's where the pavement is right now, or where it's planned to be, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the area to the east of that blue area is the city area that you're talking about? Is that correct?
Yeah, this is the landscape plan, there's a site plan that shows the property line, but it runs basically,
Do you want a pointer? Will that help?
the property line runs.
Okay. Okay. Okay, the last question I've got is basically, Commissioner Heidel covered it on the foliage on the backside. Thank you for being a good neighbor. I think that they appreciate that. The fence that's currently there doesn't conceal a whole lot. And I imagine with the increase in traffic, I think they would appreciate that. So it's a compliment. Thank you for doing that. That's all I have, Commissioner.
Commissioner Watkins, did you have any questions?
One question on your drive-through, the one-way entry is obviously going to be towards the south end of the property, correct? The perpendicular to Milton Road.
Correct.
On your exit, on your one-way there, your parking, will you have a set lane laid out for traffic coming through, like a set lane that's going to separate the? I know you're not going to mark spots for the parking back for employee parking. Will you have like a set lane, like a right-left turn lane out onto Boise? Or are you just planning on one lane exit? Just curious.
It's gonna be, I can't remember what the dimension is for the driveway, I think it's a standard 30-foot driveway,
Okay.
I think. I don't know if during the building permit process, if that striping is needed, you can add that in to show a designated lane for the.
Surely, and again, not this is just suggestion, not anything, but I would definitely, even if it's not required, I would definitely recommend it just for liability reasons for the city and for your parking, just to keep, people get if there's nothing there, you got somebody turning left, somebody turning right, all of a sudden you got 3 cars lined up trying to get out. Just, saves everybody a little bit of a headache. And that's all I've got.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
You may take a seat. Okay, so, commission, we need to just, we've got our conclusions that we have to come to, right? Or we just approve it? Take a vote and approve it?
So, commission, at this point, you have the staff report on the information from the applicant. You would consider the facts that have been presented in light of the design review criteria we discussed at the beginning of this, the architectural quality, traffic flow, and then determine, based upon the facts you have and applying them to the law, whether or not the application should be approved and denied, or approved in part, or however it comes out. So
Okay.
it's discussion time, and a motion is appropriate at any time. A discussion can happen either before or after the motion. Those are both perfectly fine.
I'm always a big fan of new business, especially one that's gonna take and revamp something that's been there for quite some time. The building's been there forever. It's nice to see something that the community needs come in, especially following the guidelines of the architectural requirements the city has laid out.
I like that they're gonna match the buildings across the street for continuity. I think that's gonna improve our city, class it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of, ditto the compliment, or the comments so far. Just a question, if we approve the design, we're also going to approve the conditions of approval, correct? Or is it just the design?
Yeah, so you would be approving with conditions. The conditions are not the caveat, but
The seven items go along
Yes,
with the design review.
the yes but part of approval.
Okay.
Okay.
And those conditions are not yet met, but we are certifying that through the approval, they certify that they will comply with those restrictions.
Yeah, Commission, my understanding would be a process that before they could pull a C of O at the end of before they get final sign off on the building permit applications, the criteria would need to be met. If Roberta were here, or if we had a building inspector here, they could answer that more specifically, but so lighting being down, but that's something that gets inspected, right? So it either is or it isn't. It either passes inspection or it does not. Engineering plan and planning comments during building permit phase, again, it's tied to a permit. Rural fire departments, that's going to comments, that's going to be a predicate to a C of O, and obviously the building's already occupied, but it's going to be a predicate to final sign off on whatever building permits are pulled, and given the scope of this, permits are certainly going to be pulled. So anyway, as it goes through, there are approval processes that apply to these various components that will be reviewed. Again, it's not just sort of word of honor of the applicant.
Okay. So, ready to make a motion?
Yeah, well, unless you want to take a stab at it.
No,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the design review application of Middleton Drug Pharmacy, a pharmacy proposed for the parcel located at 324 Boise Street, and the conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Chris Jansen. Do I have a second?
second.
I have a second by Commissioner Watkins. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Okay. We now are going to move into the public hearing portions, and before we do that, I wanted to give some testimony guidelines, and briefly go over some testimony guidelines. If you haven't already, will you please silence your electronic devices at this time? Also, keep your talking in the audience to a very minimum. We are recording this, and we do need it to be clear. If you need to talk while you're seated in the audience, please step out outside so that you can do that and not disturb and be respectful of the meeting. If you are here to offer public testimony on any of the public hearings, please make sure you've signed up on the applicable sign-in sheet at the back. If it's just a general Planning and Zoning Commission comment that you want to make, there is another sign up for just public comments that will be at the end. So if it's not applicable to a hearing, then please sign up on that one. We'd like to make sure that everybody has time to give their testimony, so you will be allotted 3 minutes for your testimony. And if somebody before you has given the same testimony you're giving, you can just state that ditto to the person that stated it before you. If you have anything additional, you're welcome to come up and state that, just to keep the meeting moving. And when your name is called, you'll come up to the podium, clearly state your name and address for the record. Like I said, you'll be given 3 minutes. Please adhere to this time limit. If you have extra additional items you want to cover that you couldn't get into the 3 minutes, you may be allotted an additional one-time 1 minute additional time. And if you have anything that you think is pertinent for us to hear, then that's what you'll step up to the podium to do. Okay. With that being said, we will open up this public hearing. Item number 3 on our agenda at 5:57 is an application by Christina Curry for a special use permit to operate a licensed daycare center from her home located at 1151 Overland Trail, Middleton, Idaho, in the West Highlands Ranch subdivision. The operation will provide daycare for up to 12 children that are unrelated to Ms. Curry. Hours of operation will be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And do we have our applicant here to hear this tonight?
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're going to hear from staff first, and then we'll call you up.
Okay. All right, Commission. So this is a special use permit application. Like design review, this is one that you make a decision on rather than just a recommendation. Again, as with design review permits, the decision you make can be appealed to council, but it is a final decision if not appealed. In every zone in the city, there are 3 categories of uses. A use is either permitted, it's prohibited, or it's permitted by special use. And that is a policy decision that was made when the code was drafted. If use is permitted, that's because it's perceived that it's in keeping with the zone and appropriate. If it's prohibited, it means that there's just no circumstance where that use should be permitted in the zone. And then we have this middle ground, which is special use permits. A special use permit is when you have a use that can be allowed in a zone, but there's some concern that it may have a negative impact on surrounding uses. And so it comes before you to consider the application, the specifics of it, to determine whether or not there are sufficient conditions that can be placed on the use to make sure that it mitigates whatever negative effect there would be on surrounding uses. So that's the background of what special use permits are and what you'll be hearing tonight. There were a number of late exhibits, and I think those consist of 3 emails. 2 emails, one of which had an attachment that was an email. One was from Patrick Sheridan. One was from East to West Property Management, and attached to that was an email to East to West Property Management allegedly from some resident. I'm not saying allegedly because I don't believe it, but just because I don't have any way of verifying it for sure. So these communications, for those of you who are interested, are there in the back if you'd like to review them prior to giving your testimony. That's where they're at. This is a special use permit application to operate a daycare at 1151 Overland Trail. We don't have a computer operator. Okay. Can you pull, it's okay. Can you pull the staff report for the special use permit? Thanks. As with the last application, I won't go into too many of the specifics because it's going to be just a simple regurgitation of the staff report, and I know that you've had a chance to review that prior to this meeting, and I'll leave the remainder to the applicant. But the ask is to operate, to be granted a special use permit to operate a daycare, like I said, at 1151 Overland Trail Road. That is at the intersection of Bighorn Avenue and Overland Trail. The proposed hours are 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. There's some discussion about potentially staggering pickup and drop-off times to try to mitigate traffic concerns. It appears that the necessary licensing has been obtained for the fire department, but the state license has not yet been finalized because it is contingent on an approval of a special use permit. The surrounding property is all zoned R3. There are adequate city utilities, as you would expect, to water, sewer, police, fire, that sort of thing. And then the staff report goes through that same code that I referenced earlier, both on what a special use permit is and on the fact that this daycare facility, 7 or more children, between essentially 7 and up to 12 is what the application is for. The 12 children at the daycare facility is a special use in this zone. There are additional comments from landowners attached to the staff report. Those are in your packet and you will have seen those. So anyway, at this point, if there aren't any questions for me, I'll let the applicant come up and discuss as is always the case with the special use permit, you have a use that is not permitted as a default. It's permitted by special use permit only. And the primary question to look at is, are there conditions that can be placed on this, if any, to sufficiently mitigate concerns with surrounding uses, which gets at, like I discussed, the reason this was designated as a special use as opposed to a permitted use. The last comment I will make, some of the communications that we have received refer to the CC&Rs of the subdivision and whether or not it's permissible to operate a business at this residence based upon the CC&Rs. So as you know, CC&Rs are a document that gets recorded against property in a subdivision that governs what can and can't be done in the subdivision, ranging from things like how many pets you can have to what kind of landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, this is a private contract that exists between property owners in a subdivision. And so the legal advice, I'll step into that chair for a second, is generally when private parties have a private agreement, it needs to be up to them to sort that out. Otherwise, the city is in a position where it's enforcing private contracts. The line can be a little more confusing in a circumstance where somebody's alleging that something's prohibited by the CC&Rs. It becomes more clear, for example, I was, agreed to sell one of you a business, and then it didn't happen. You alleged I breached the contract, and I had an application here to expand the business. And you got up and testified that I should be denied my application because I have breached this private contract with you to sell you the business. Unfortunately, it's just not something that a city council or planning and zoning commission is well equipped to arbitrate. And so, while it's not impermissible to consider it, the general rule is to permit those private parties to that contract, which is what a CC&R is, to negotiate and arbitrate amongst themselves. So that's my parting comment on that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Council, I have a question.
Okay.
Unless you.
Sure, go ahead.
The conditions from last meeting that we had, the applicant needed to bring proof of proper insurance coverage for injury at the HOA park and provide a letter from the HOA approving the use of the park, which was one of the things that they had provided as an amenity for both the size of their property and the volume of kids that they have on the property. So going with your comment a moment ago, I don't know if those have been provided as part of today's meeting. Or
This is a
if they
different
are not
applicant.
ceased, pardon?
This is a different applicant. This is a different one.
How did I get that one?
So, Commission, is this the first time this application is?
This is the first time
Okay,
we've
so
heard this one.
at the last meeting, there was a different daycare
Yes, a
application.
few
Okay,
meetings.
okay,
A few meetings worth.
okay.
The following,
So,
But this one isn't using a community park.
yeah.
since that it's gonna be
Okay.
using its own property.
But with that, precedent has been kind of set, the fact that they said we are kind of making on, as council stated, HOA approval. You know,
So,
it's,
yeah, commission, special use permits don't really have precedental value unless there's something, that's way outside the scope. But in general, like with the variance, it's on a case-by-case basis. There's nothing the commission can do to invalidate a private contract CCNRs. The commission cannot do that, the city can't do it. And so this issue, it's a corollary would be concerns about private irrigation rights when a property develops. The code sets out what the obligations are in terms of relocation and piping and ensuring that downstream users continue to receive their irrigation water. There's nothing the city council or planning and zoning commission can do to deprive a water user of their right to have that continue. It's in the statute, and it's also arguably in common law. And so this again is why it's not particularly helpful for the commission to contemplate, to sort of take into consideration the CCNRs. Again, you're not prohibited from doing it, but you just don't have the ability to waive the CCNRs. You don't have the authority to interpret them. I know in one of the communications there was an excerpt from CCNRs. I have not seen a recorded version of that with a recorder's stamp. The excerpt I did receive appeared to be a .doc document, which means that it's at least the literal electronic document from which it was pulled is not the final recorded document, although in theory you could have that at the bottom of the recorded document, so it's not for certain. But again, it's not to say it's right or wrong, or that the HOA and other property owners should or shouldn't do any particular thing. It's just a demonstration of why it is difficult for a city to intervene or arbitrate a private contractual agreement / dispute amongst neighbors. You just are not well equipped with the tools to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I made that error, but it still applies, but thank you, we can't do that. So the other thing I was gonna ask about is, 12 children is not unreasonable or incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Can you help, what is it, does that mean that if there are no other daycare facilities like this in the area, that constitutes a incompatibility with the application here?
So that, not unreasonable or incompatible with, that is essentially a legal standard. If you say it in the affirmative, it's a legal conclusion that it's not incompatible. But it's also, for the purpose of today, it's articulated as a standard. You're asking, is it compatible, incompatible, or in conflict with the surrounding uses? In essence, there is not a, that is the thing you're answering. And so there is not an answer to that in the sense that I can go to a table or a graph and say for certain yes or no. That is the standard, and the facts that are going to be presented will lead you to believe that either yes is compatible or no is not compatible. And that is the sort of quasi-judicial function of you sitting in this capacity. Is you are tasked with determining whether it is or is not. You asked about, well, what if there's one right next door? What if there are none, or what if there are many? Those are not specific legal toggles, but those are the kinds of questions you would ask of the applicant or the other people, and the kind of things you would consider in determining whether or not it was compatible or not, and whether or not you found that you decided that having more around increased compatibility or decreased compatibility, again, that is the question for you. So anyway, sorry I can't give you a specific answer on that, but that is what, by the end of the hearing, you will have discussed and determined.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Not here.
I submitted it wrong, so.
Do we need to submit them into the record? Okay, so we will submit these 3 items into the record, do we have to provide these to
It's
the
exhibit,
public?
yeah, the copies are back there.
Copies
It's
are back there?
exhibits C, D, and E.
Okay, so we have 3 emails that are exhibits C, D, and E that are going to be included in the record.
They're late submitted.
Late submissions to the record. They're back on this table if anybody in the audience wanted to grab them and read them. Okay, so we will hear from the applicant. Go ahead and come on to the podium, please. State your name and address for the record, and is 5 or 10 minutes going to be okay for you? Or how much time do you feel like you need? 10, just in case?
Yeah, 10
Okay,
just in case.
we'll put 10 minutes on the clock for her then.
All right, thank you. My name is Christina Curry. My current residence is 1151 Overland Trail Street, Middleton, Idaho 83644.
Okay, go ahead and tell us about your application.
All right. I just want to let you know I've been a part of the Middleton community for over 12 years and a part of the West Highlands community, the subdivision that I'm applying for the special use permit for over 4.5 years. I opened my in-home daycare in January of 2020 and I currently allow up to 6 kids per day. However, in order to help support the growth of Middleton and the need for more daycares, I want to do my part to help the community and the various parents that have called me asking for my help due to the fact that a lot of daycares in the area have wait lists that are over 6 months long. I do want to, if I can, have a few minutes to explain some of the letters that were concerned about the traffic. Before I went back down to 6 kids, at one point I had Victor Islas come out to my house and do an inspection and told me how many kids that I could occupy in my home. I was not aware that I had to be licensed for that amount of kids before I can allow that many kids in my house. So unaware, I did allow at one point more kids than the 6. And so I also had staff that helped me at my daycare. And so they were parking along the street in the driveway, making it hard for parents. And I was not aware that it was causing an issue for the neighbors. As soon as Health and Welfare came out and told me, I needed to get licensed before I could have as many kids as I had, I instantly dropped the number of kids. I sent out a letter to the parents on May 7th. I can show you proof of that if you need it. On my phone, I don't have a copy of it. I'll print it off. But stating to the parents where the car is in front of the house, they are not to use that area for pickup or drop off. I had neighbors that were concerned about that being a blind area. There's a neighbor that across the street that parks his car right in front of their driveway. So it kind of made, I guess, a tight space, and so I did, like I said, as soon as I was aware that was an issue, sent out a letter to the parents letting them know they can no longer use that area, as well as making it so that parents have the staggered drop-off times. To me, this is a learning experience. I did do things wrong the first time, but I did learn from my mistakes, and I hope that you will consider me having the daycare, getting the special use permit for my daycare, and I will work on making sure that I follow the rules and regulations. I appreciate you giving me the time to give that information to you. I hope that will help.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions for you. So in the application, in the staff report, it does indicate that you have children that are aged newborn to 10 years old, and you currently said you have 6 under your care right now. What are the ages of those kids?
Right now, the ones that I watch, my youngest is a little over 1.5 years, and right now the oldest during the day is 5 years old. During the school, I was watching kids that would come after school that would go up to the ages of 10 years old.
And then you said that you're licensed through the state to have an in-home daycare also? Is that
I'm
what I
not
heard?
currently licensed, that's what I'm working on.
Okay, so do you know what the child to provider ratios are for the different ages?
Correct, yes. So each staff is assigned a number of points, and each child is assigned points based on their age. And yes, so starting at under 2 years old, they're 2.5 points. And then the
So
older
that
they get, the
translates
less.
to what? Like how many kids per provider?
So if they're under
everybody
the
you had was
age,
under 2, how many kids could you have in your care?
if they're under the age of 2,
Mm-hmm.
5.
Okay. And then what's the next category?
The next category would be 2 to 3 years old. They're 2 points.
And so that would be 8? Is that how
Roughly
it
about
works out?
7.
7, okay. So it's kind of just double,
Yeah.
kind of almost times 2. And so then it's like 3 to 4 a category, and then 4 to 5 a category?
Correct, yes.
So what are
the, off the top of my head, I have it written down at my house, but I don't have it memorized off the top of my head.
That's okay, just whatever you remember.
I believe the ages of 3 to 4, it goes to 1.5 points, and then 4 and above is 1 point. Or 4 to 5 is 1 point, and then if they're over the age of 5, then they're half a point.
Okay, so then if you have a variety of ages, how does that point system work for you? So if you have a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, which ratio are you going to be subject to there?
The 12 points. So I would add up the points based on the child's age. So like for example, if I have a 1-year-old, they'd be the 2.5 points. If I have a 3-year-old, they'd be the 2 points. So, and then I would calculate and make sure that I'm within the 12 points.
Okay.
Can I add to what your question was
Sure.
taking away?
Sure.
So along with the point system, let's assume you're the only provider on the property at that time. So do you have other people who are going to be assisting as far as daycare professionals or daycare people that are going to be there with you? in that capacity?
At this time, I would like to get to that point where I at least have one other person helping me. Before I had up to 3 staff helping me at one time. But again, it was a learning experience. I was not aware.
You're probably taking care of a lot of kids that.
Yes, I was. And also, during the summer we would go to the park, so I wanted to make sure there was more staff per children ratio, so I actually would have more staff than I even needed to go to the park. To me, the safety of the children is a priority, and so I would rather have more staff with less kids.
So if there's a significant need for childcare in the city of Middleton, which I understand there probably is, I don't use childcare myself, but I know people that do. Why not just look for a commercial space to rent and do a full daycare?
That is
Like
a good
if you had so many kids that you had 3 staff, that's probably 25 or 30 kids. That would probably be enough to just open up a small commercial space somewhere and just do it that way. Then you're mitigating all of the issues that are coming up because of trying to do it in your home, which have you explored that option?
I have. So before, that was actually something that I was considering doing. But the reason I have not and why I work from my home is I'm a single mom of 4 kids. And so working in my home allows me to be home with my kids. And so, that may be something that I might consider later on down the road. But as of right now, it's easier and best for me to stay at home with my kids and be able to be there with them as well.
I understand that. Okay, so then I have another question about some of the staff report here. I'm trying to just make sense of it. So it says that you have 6 children that you're permitted to care for. I mean, I guess under 6 you don't have to have a license. Is that
Right.
what it is? Okay.
Correct.
So then you currently have 3 children that are your own in your home, then 1 adult. So how do those 3 children factor into the 6 that you're allowed to have? Is that now that you can only have 3 because you already have 3? Is that how it works, or do we disregard your 3 and you get 6 more?
As my kids are older, I do have some teenage kids, so I do believe they don't actually factor into the kids that I have to count. I do have one that is 8. When Health and Welfare came out, they did not say that I have to count her or include her in my count. So I'm not sure if I go to get licensed. My understanding is that I may have to include her in that count. So it's something that I will need to find out.
So right now you're not including her, so you do have 6 you're caring for plus your own 1. And then the 3 that are older that are not factoring into any of this because they're older. Okay. And so then how do you utilize your driveway for parking and drop off and pick up? Is that utilized at all, or do you have your cars always parked in the driveway so that your patrons have to park on the street? Or walk me through kind of how that pickup
So
and
I
drop-off
always
looks
park
like.
my car to the far left of my driveway when you're facing the house to allow the optimized space that I can for the parents to pick up and drop off in my driveway. I have told parents that if I need to, I can park along Bighorn Avenue, which is just around the corner. But as of right now, because I have the staggered pickup times, it has not been a need for me to park along Bighorn Avenue.
So you are primarily trying to facilitate drop off and pick up through your driveway?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions from Commission for the applicant?
So in the notes, I do see that occasionally there's walking trips for use of the heights, the fields there for the kids.
Correct.
Okay. And that's something I guess we would. Okay. Do a little self-reflection here. Just wanted to verify that was something there.
Correct. And on our walks, we try to be as respectful as possible to the neighbors. Telling the kids we're not allowed to walk on the grass. We stay on the sidewalk. The younger kids, I have a 6-seated stroller as well as a 2-seated wagon that we take if we need to. But most of the kids, they love to walk there. We play for just a little bit and then head back to the park, or head back to my house.
So you have somebody joining you walking?
I do. I have a teenager that will help on Fridays. And Friday's the only day right now that we've been going to the park.
So Friday's the only day you have walk-ins?
Correct.
Really quickly, another thought. Walk me through your staggered pickup and drop off so we can kind of get a feel for what that traffic impact looks like.
Sure. So I brought my login sheet, so I can pick any day that you want.
Are people like designated a certain time that they can come, or?
As of right now, it works out that way, but if I do get licensed for 12, it's probably most likely what I will do is assign a parent a certain time. But like, for example, I have, on May 2nd, I have one child that was dropped off at 7:30 a.m., one at 8 a.m., one at 7:45, one at 8:15, one at 7:40, one at 9. This is all like I said, it works out that, that they come, even if they're 5 minutes apart. There's none that came on the same time, or at the same time.
And about how long are they there doing the pickup and the drop off?
Usually parents don't stay longer than like 5, maybe 10 minutes. But usually it's pretty quick in and out. more than no more than 5 minutes.
Do you have any more questions?
Only other question I have, and again, as council stated earlier, it's not our job to dictate that, but have you had a meeting with the HOA to discuss this or approach the HOA?
I've sent emails to the HOA trying to speak to somebody, trying to get approvals. I have not heard back from them, so it's not from lack of trying. I do want to get permission. I have read the CCNRs, and I did not see what it said about having a small business in your home, and so trying to get more information about that, what the rules are. But like I said, I have not heard back from anybody.
So is this East to West Property Management who
Correct. Yes, I've
manages your
emailed
HOA?
them. Yes, I've emailed them more than once.
Okay, so they did put a copy in some, so there is a copy of their email over there if you wanted to grab it.
Oh.
If you haven't already, they did copy in this section
Oh,
for you that states no business or home occupation is allowed. But again, that's, that we can't make our decision based upon that. That's something for you to work out with your HOA and your neighbors. We can only go by what the city has authority for. Any other questions?
I do. Just expanding a little bit on what's already been talked about. So the kids sound to me like they come staggered. They aren't like a drop off at the middle school where you have a line of cars, opening the door, dropping the kid off and driving off. They are always staggered, is that what I'm hearing?
correct.
And so it's one car at a time. So if you have 6 or 8 kids, you could get them in a span of an hour, 2 to 3 maybe, and they're there for 10 minutes. So you're not going to have a line of cars, but it does increase the volume of traffic in the neighborhood. Is that what I'm hearing?
And most of the kids that I have currently in my in my daycare are a part of the neighborhood. I don't know if that makes a difference,
So they walk there, or
I have one family that walks.
Or they're dropping them off on their way to work.
Exactly.
And it's
They
not
would
an
have taken
extra,
us around. Exactly.
yeah, it's not an extra trip by your house.
Exactly.
So
But
when you say most, tell us the number of how many are most?
out of the 6, I have 4 that are a part of the West Highlands
Okay,
community.
so really we're talking about 2 additional trips by your house. The only difference is that 4 of those cars stop, whereas they wouldn't normally.
Exactly.
They would be stopping somewhere else. So 2 additional vehicles, possibly up to 12, if we minus the 4. But you said that a lot of the people that have shown interest are from your neighborhood as well.
So continuing under that, so do you have kind of like a reservation allotted? Okay, so child 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has like a reservation. Did I hear you say that's it's
Like I said,
kind
I
of-
don't-
So you don't have just somebody calling up and say, hey, I need to drop my child off today. So you have a pretty good idea of how many kids you're going to have.
Correct, yes. Parents are to notify me ahead of time. Most of my kids have a set schedule. There are a few that are drop-in occasional, but the parents do let me know in advance what time or what day they're going to be dropping off. Like I said, if I do get licensed, I can, parents are, really great about working with me and any of the rules that I put out there. So if I say you have between this time and this time to pick up or drop off your child, I know that those parents are gonna follow those guidelines.
Okay. And then the only other thing pursuant to the conversation we had earlier, do you know of any other daycares in your, I can't remember the name of your subdivision here, but it looks like quite a few homes in there. Do you know of any other daycare facilities that are licensed?
One that was licensed, I did reach out to her to find out if she was licensed. She has closed down her daycare, and part of the kids that were in her daycare came over to mine when she closed down. But I did ask if she was able to get licensed, and she said that she was licensed, and she was located in our subdivision.
And so she operated, I mean, we have your HOA that says it isn't So if she was licensed and operated there, I don't know how. Anyway, that's not for me to determine. So only one previously, but you don't know of any now?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay.
This one I do know for sure, was licensed and located in the West Highlands Ranch subdivision.
Okay.
Well, and this email from HOA does say that they're open to having some conversations with the homeowner, so I would grab one of those and make sure you're emailing that email address.
Okay. Thank you.
That would be my, like I said, we're still got a lot to discuss and we've got a lot to hear, but I would take to heart they do have kind of a layout, and it looks like they have had a discussion with the HOA board regarding this. It looks like they have had some information here, so I mean, there is, again, not our place, but there is some discussion going here, and it's I think it'd behoove you to get involved in that with that, because I mean, there's some good information here that a lot of questions I would ask or being asked and said, so definitely something to look at and communicate with that as well.
Anything else?
Good.
Okay, thank you. The next step here is that we're going to hear from the public, and then you will have a chance to come back up and give us any additional comments or insights based upon the public comments as well. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay, so do I slam my gavel again?
No, public hearing's still open.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Okay, so if you did not yet sign up to testify to this public hearing, your chance is rapidly going away. To make sure that
This one's for number 4, and it should have been for number 3, so make sure that they're testifying for the right, does that make sense? For the right hearing.
Okay, I guess so. Okay, so we need to make sure that you signed up on the right sheet, I guess. Autumn Marler.
For number 4 for this one.
Did you sign up to testify for this hearing or the next one?
For this one.
Okay, so step up to the podium. Name and address for the record, and then you will have 3 minutes to tell us what you want.
Okay. I'm Autumn Marler. My address is 1006 Overland Trail Street. And I'm in the West Highlands subdivision. I apologize, I'm not very eloquent, and my heart is beating really fast. This is not a personal attack in any way against, I know her as Tina. I think that she's a great person, and the few interactions that I've had with her, I'm not a personal friend of hers. But I haven't had any issues with her. My issues are all safety concerns. A lot of the parking and things have been talked about. A couple of the things that I noticed haven't been mentioned, that is a huge concern to me personally. So she did talk about parking right here on the corner where this car is closest to the camera. I went over and personally had a conversation with her one day about cars being parked there. It's very difficult coming around that corner, especially headed up Bighorn coming around. And she received the information well. I do notice that she talked to parents about it perhaps. I noticed a huge improvement for 3 days. After that, started having problems again. I haven't approached her again since then. A huge issue that we seem to have in the mornings, I commute to the high school at 7:28. I leave my house every school morning. At 7:28 to 7:30, there is a school bus picking up middle school children that is coming from this direction, coming around the corner of Bighorn. We often have lots of cars I say lots, I should not say that. We have her personal cars parked there in the driveway, but we usually have 1 to 2 cars, which are her kids coming, parked on the corners there. And then along Bighorn, where this white car is parked, we typically on any day have 4 cars parked there. It is, they might not be her vehicles, but they are vehicles of neighbors. They're always parked there. So coming around this corner in both directions is very difficult, especially dealing with the bus that picks up students at the end of Bighorn there. Also, she had at one point a child in her care that was picked up by another bus, maybe a charter school or a private school that would come around this way. So now we have competing buses that can't make it around that corner together at the same time. So it's a concern there, and also coming around the corner several times in the morning, the sun is
Go ahead and take one more
extremely
minute,
bright.
okay? One more minute.
Okay, the sun is extremely bright, and I have come around this corner several times myself and almost hit children. There's in the snow, they like to sled down the side of her lawn there, and when there's cars parked there, it's really hard. They kind of often sled off a little bit into the road, maybe not a lot, but it's alarming to drivers. So those are just some safety things. I don't feel like the lot is in a great placement, and I don't feel like her lot is large enough for more children than maybe what she has right now.
Thank you. Just really quickly, I have a clarifying question for one of your comments. So you said that there was lots of cars parked there. You made a comment to her about it. It was fixed for a few days. Do you know about the date that was? When was that?
I'm going approximately maybe the 2nd or 3rd week of May.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it was back when she had like 25 or 30 kids.
Sure, no.
You know, or was it when she was whittled down to 6? You know,
I believe it was when she was down to 6. There was a huge difference. All of the neighbors were able to notice the difference when she didn't have as many kids at her house. Just in lots of things. I think a big thing is when she has employees, they also have to park. So then, you know, there's a couple. And so when they're taking up the spots in her driveway, there is nowhere else for the parents. And also when parents come to drop off, they tend to park on the wrong side of the street. They park on her side of the street, but facing the wrong direction, which makes it also difficult.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Isaac Sosefek. Did I say that right? Is there an Isaac here?
I think he was I don't think he's here.
Okay, Craig Smith. Is there a Craig here? Tammy Gabiga.
Oh, I just signed that I was coming
Okay,
here. I don't want to say anything, sorry.
Now you gotta talk.
Sorry.
okay, no worries. Janet Bauer.
I'm on the wrong piece of paper too.
Okay, so you guys didn't check anything. Are you Mark Bauer?
I am.
Okay, you guys, yeah, you guys didn't check anything, so I'm just, yeah, you were just like maybe signing in, like attendance or something?
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Lee Bradshaw, is that how it is?
Yeah, I was just signing in for.
You were just marking yourself here as well?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
High school credit.
Take what I can get.
Sylvan Baines. Okay, step up to the podium. You're gonna have 3 minutes. Name and address for the record, please. And try to add new, colorful information that we haven't already heard.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sylvan Baines. I live at 1064 Silver Spring Street in the West Highlands subdivision. I'm like 5 houses from Tina. My son has been a client of hers for 4 years now. We have been going there. She's been wonderful. And since we're in the subdivision, we walk, and I know a lot of the other parents walk because why am I going to drive? Gas prices. And we have had 0 complaints with her. Every single thing that we have had to address, which has never been anything big. She's always been totally receptive to everything I've had to say. Even just in general, she did get up to like kids for a while, yes. But as soon as she realized like, oh, this is not working, it went down. And for her property, for her house, I've been in her house a million times, and for her backyard is a child's dream. You ask my child, he wants to go to Tina's backyard. I'm like, that's not the park, that's her backyard. So she's made her backyard a place where kids want to be, and like our park and our subdivision is considered a public park, so they can do whatever they, anybody can be there, so them to go to the park is perfectly fine. And with, like she's made her home very receptive for 12 children, and with the 6, I understand her as a single mom. That's not, when you think of it, it's really hard. So as a parent looking for childcare, I called Little Leagues, there's a new daycare right by the freeway, which that does not sound like fun to me as a parent, and I don't want my child by a freeway, and the convenience of having a daycare 5 houses down from me. I'm a full-time student, my husband works full-time. It just makes sense. I could not picture driving my child all the way up to the freeway, or there's no other option because there's no other daycares. And we called, you can't go anywhere. And in Middleton, the need for that is very high as a parent with little ones, and we just really needed it. And especially in our subdivision, we have a subdivision page, and there's always childcare, we need childcare. We just moved here, we need childcare. And so it's like, go to Tina's, she's here. Go to Tina's, she's here. And as a parent that has received childcare from Tina, it's been wonderful. I feel like the growth is important for her as a business owner. And for us, parking's never been an issue because we walk, and that's, I have nothing to say about that. And like with the HOA regulations, I know you have no say about that, but our HOA doesn't even answer anybody when you email them, so I can understand that because I have been in the same situation with them. So I know that doesn't matter, but their response to humans is not very fast, so that's another thing. But I feel like with her growing to 12 makes sense. Like, she has enough space. All the kids have little beds. She's invested in beds for them, like little, daycare cots that every other daycare has. She has them at her house. She has stairs. It's all fenced in. They can't go upstairs. There's no, like when I walk in there, I'm not like, oh my gosh, my kid's gonna fall out her second story window. Everything is safe in there, and the backyard is definitely a pleasure. Like when she takes the kids for walks, they're like little ducks in a row. Like he's wild, he took off his shoes while we're here. Ducks in a row, backyard is wonderful, and it's a really good place for kids to be. And as a parent, I need it, and it's just so important because I don't have any family here. I'm all alone. I don't have a mom. I don't have a dad to call, nothing. And having her as an option as a daycare provider and for her growth makes sense to me.
One follow-up question for
Yes.
you. I know you said you walk.
Yes.
But have you noticed a traffic problem?
No,
being 5
not
doors
from
down?
her house. There's other people. The thing is, there's so many people with so many cars in our neighborhood itself that it's not.
It's not all her.
No, it's not her. Yeah, it's not all her. I mean,
It's
there's
like
1 or
multiple
2
offenders.
cars. Multiple.
Okay.
And the HOA doesn't write me back, because I have the issue on my street with multiple cars. There's a family. They have like 15 cars, and they're always parked in my driveway. It's a situation. They don't answer me, so
Okay.
that's like, it's not all her. And in my opinion, I don't see it's all personally hers, her cars.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask one more question?
Yes.
When you walk your kids down, on what occasions, how many occasions do you have other parents dropping off?
Never. I was just there today. It was just us. Nobody else was there. Yeah.
What time of the day do you remember?
Today we dropped off, it was like 9:23 or something like that. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sarah Hartzheim? Hartzheim?
Present. All right.
Okay, name and address for the record. We'll give you 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Sarah Hartzheim. I actually have 2 addresses in West Highlands. I'm renting on her side of West Highlands right now, and we're rebuilding our house after our house fire last May. So, yay, that's fun. So I have lived in West Highlands since 2015 and in Middleton since 2014. I mean, I'm not gonna repeat what everyone said, obviously. We live in the neighborhood. My husband walks our son to and from daycare every day, which has been a godsend because it's spurred kind of a health buzz in him. He's walking 110 miles every month because of this started it. So it's not just, having someone close that's nice, it's having someone in the neighborhood. Parents now utilize the driveway, eliminating the parking concern. And I have to say, I totally get the concerns. That corner is kind of a chicane. We live on Iron Stallion, and there is a similar instance. The streets are just not designed well throughout the entire subdivision, and it's made worse, not by people dropping their kids off and picking them up from daycare. It's made worse by trailers, boats, trucks, cars that are not moved, and we contact the HOA and they do nothing. So I just have to say that a lot of this is really augmented by the fact that there's a lot of stationary vehicles that are not doing anything, just sitting there taking up room, blocking traffic. What people said in these emails about kids darting out in traffic, I've never witnessed that. I don't think they're Tina's kids. It's not my child. And I will say this is a public safety concern, but not for the ways that you think it is. It's a public safety concern because if we do not have people like Christina who are applying to be licensed, there's going to be more people that are running unlicensed daycares because it's become overburdensome to apply and do what's right. She's doing the right things. She found out that she was over her capacity and she rectified it immediately. I remember that day that I got the text message saying, hey, I just found out I have too many kids. I picked up my son instantly. We did not have daycare for weeks because she was working out her stuff. She could have kept taking her son. She could have kept taking everyone's children under the radar, and she didn't. She did the work. She did what was right. Middleton does not have adequate daycare resources. So if we deny a family-based, a home-based daycare from taking place in a neighborhood where children live and thrive, where are they to go? Little Legs has a wait list that's ridiculous. The other one over at Green Lakes also has a wait list. I never even heard back from them. And now I'm expecting my second child, and I want to be able to send her there with her big brother. It becomes an issue when we don't have resources in our community. And by not allowing someone to do the right thing, to get licensed, to have the fire inspector come, to reach out to parents, to be very communicative with everything they do, we're setting ourselves up for failure as a community. We're growing too fast. We don't have the infrastructure, especially with childcare. So, last thing, kids are always in the backyard. I've never seen them not in the backyard. The person who said kids were sledding down the side, they weren't daycare kids. Maybe they were neighborhood kids that were visiting her daughter or playing on their part of the yard, which is totally acceptable. But all the issues listed go far beyond just one person's house, one person's corner. It's a systemic problem in the neighborhood that I don't think we should be putting all the blame on one individual when they're trying to do the right thing. We all park in the driveway, we walk to daycare, we want to foster that community, and this is how we do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Hey, Kim Kirschensteiner. Name and address for the record. Keep it at 3 minutes and we'll give you an extra minute if you need to go over.
My name is Kimberly Kirschensteiner, and my address is 1915 Prairie Way in West Highlands subdivision as well. My kids are not at the daycare. I actually worked at the daycare with Tina. She actually took care of my kids when Filma Cup was open. So I've been with her since my little, who's now almost 11, was 4 months old. She's never, she's always looked out for these kids. She's always made sure that we have enough staff to look after them. She's reached out beyond, we never allow the kids in the front yard sledding in the snow. We're lucky we let them out in the backyard when they go, because it's too muddy, it's too wet, you know, and then they come in and everything else. So, as far as the traffic, there's a lot of cars belonging to the residents, especially across the street. There's trailers. There's a trailer around the corner from me. I called the cops, it's been there for a month. It still has not been moved. And its registered plates are expired. So there's a big problem. And around the corner from Sarah, the curve is bad. It's the same issue. The park, we take the kids, we make sure we have enough people to cover them. We make sure, I mean, we don't leave the house unless they have sunscreen on. They'll have hats on, gloves, coats, you name it. We make sure that those kids are very well taken care of. I am currently stepped away since the drop of the kids, and I actually watch a newborn in my home. I do have 4 of my own, but they are 10 to 17, so they were older. But I would love to be able to come back and be able to be with the kids again. When I see them around town and they come running up to me because they haven't seen me for a month, it's hard not to be able to be there for them, you know. And a lot of the kids are all from the subdivision. But I would say 90% of them are all in the subdivision. As far as businesses, there are car detailing company that runs out of our subdivision. There's a lot of people who run their businesses out of the subdivision. It's not just here and there and little. There's painting companies, there's bounce house companies. There's a lot of different companies. It's not just one small daycare. It's a lot of people working from home at their businesses. So I hope you take in consideration that this is very needed. I will say there was one employee that we had that I brought on. She worked at our kids, and she was in a room with 2-year-olds, 18 to 1, by herself, and she couldn't handle it anymore. So when I brought her on and she could see that it was a few kids per each of us, she was like, this is crazy, I've never seen it this low. So keep consideration that there are other daycares that are not following the rules and are flying by. So
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, was there anybody else that did not sign up that wishes to give public testimony here? Okay. All right, so then I don't close it yet. Okay, so we'll let the applicant come back up and give some rebuttals for anything you desire. Okay, so just kind of any of the comments that you heard, if you wanted to give us further details and explanation to help us make our decision.
I do, first off, you know, if there's cars that are continuing to be parked along the corner there, again, I will send out another message to the parents right away. Like Autumn had mentioned, when she came to my house and mentioned that it was a problem, as soon as she told me, like I said, on May 7th was the day that I sent out that message to the parents. When it, so anything that is addressed to me, I do try to handle it as soon as possible. I do send out notification to my parents. As far as kids sliding down the hill on side of the house, that was not any of the daycare kids. That was Kim was saying, that was most likely my daughter playing with her friends, or I guess that was Sarah saying that, playing with her friends. You know, I do allow my daughter to play in the front yard, with occasionally checking on her. But, you know, we have a rule, you know, that she has to stay within a certain parameter. And so if that was an issue, you know, now that I'm aware of it, I'll make sure that, you know, she does not do that again. Yeah, I hope that, you know, that you will consider the special permit. Like I said, it's a learning experience for me. You know, there were things that I did wrong in the past that, you know, once I applied for the special permit, that neighbors were coming out of the woodworks telling me, you know, what they didn't like that I wasn't aware of. But as soon as, you know, it came to the light, I instantly made changes.
Okay. All right, I just have one follow-up question for you. looking at your house, would it be, what are the possibilities of putting a pathway from this other street up to your house so that people aren't even parking on that corner and utilizing that direction? Would that alleviate any of these traffic concerns people have, do you think?
I believe it could, if it's a necessary step to take.
We couldn't tell you to do something like that.
Right.
I'm just,
But I think
just
that's-
thinking, like, for your benefit, like, if you were trying to be a good neighbor and help alleviate some of the concerns people have shared here tonight, like looking at other, like, what can you do to fix things, fix those issues for people. That's definitely not something we could tell you to do. Anybody else need anything from her? No. Okay, thank you very much. You may sit down.
The commission just wrote, just to add a comment, so a condition that pickup and drop off occurred at a particular location on the property, that would be actually be a kind of condition that you could obligate. And then the continued operation of the daycare at the higher capacity would be contingent on that. That is the type of thing that helps mitigate whatever the adverse effects are. So anyway, I just want to make sure that it was clear.
Okay, so
That is
we
the
could
kind of-
say like, parents can only park in the driveway, or parents can only park on that side of the street and walk up the side of the house. That would be like acceptable for us to do as like a condition of approval.
Do we stipulate what the plan is, or do we just require a plan? Because it sounds to me like there's other mitigating factors. Other people park with trailers and buses and things like that the applicant can't control. So what you said makes a lot of sense, because I think a lot of this can be mitigated through some kind of a plan.
By avoiding the corner. The corner that's the
Something like
problem.
that, but do we stipulate that, or do we just make it generic, come up with a plan?
So this is the final hearing on this application. So you can do one of two things. You can either create a condition, or you can continue this and ask that a plan be brought back. Those are your options. You could have but you could be perfectly appropriate to have a condition that said, in essence, people dropping off kids must park in the driveway, and if no spot is available in the driveway, then they must park, along whatever, I can't remember the name of the road now, but at this particular location, and then walk up to the house, and then at that point it just becomes the applicant's job, like any other business owner, to make sure that their customers are complying with, if I have a business on Main Street and I've got customers like to just, double park, whatever it's called, in the roadway with their hazards on, eventually someone's going to come say, hey, you need to tell your customers to knock it off. So it's appropriate to have a condition like that. It is appropriate to have the applicant bring back additional information. You have to reopen the public hearing and have people testify about that, but those are all legal options. I don't know, from a practical standpoint, how much additional information you really could get in a month. It's likely the case that you have sufficient facts to make a condition now, and you could have a condition that the applicant work with the street department to come up with a traffic plan. In general, it's preferable to have where there are specific requirements of saying, applicant, you must comply with the building code. Okay, well, we don't know what that's going to look like exactly, but the building code is static, except for periodic changes. And so the applicant doesn't have to wonder about, well, have I really been approved or have I not? They know, if I comply with the building code, I can build my building. If you have a condition that they have to meet with staff and come to an agreement about a traffic plan, they haven't really gotten their SUP approval, because it's all contingent on this sort of soft thing. So my recommendation to you would be not to leave it open like that. If there's a condition you can articulate clearly, then do that. If you want to have it brought back, then do that. Anyway, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I like that. So now I close the public hearing, and then we deliberate. Okay, public hearing is, no, it's a public hearing.
I know that we close the hearing,
I-
just comments.
Just public comment section?
Yes.
At the public hearing? Okay, gotta get this right. Closing the public comment section of the public hearing, which is item 3 on our action items agenda, at 7:00 PM. Okay, commission. I like the recommendation of either parking in the driveway only or on this other street, not on the corner, as a condition of approval.
I agree with, I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna
Keep
give
smacking
you
me.
some space.
Frankly, I don't see any issues with this other than things that, with the few cars that she has, combined with all the other issues,
Right,
then it's a compounding issue, which is.
because
out of-
every subdivision in
Every subdivision
Middleton
is
has these
outside the
issues.
control of the applicant. I also don't see that with volume of additional traffic that constitutes that much of an issue, or what we've read in some of the negative comments. So I don't see any issues, but to that point then, I believe if there's an adequate response of things that she, as an applicant, can control, like council suggested, along with maybe discussing the busing timing that was brought up. The buses dropping off, the school buses dropping off sounds like that might be the timing that happens every day at the same time in a compounding issue. That might be something else we can bring into the agreement. But I personally, I don't have any concerns other than this.
Yeah, I think most of the issues probably were when there was way too many kids there that should not have been there. We know from the fire marshal that she's allowed to have up to 12 for her space. So those issues, when there was 25 to 30 or maybe even possibly more, shouldn't be an issue going forward because we know she's not allowed to have more than that based on fire marshal comments. Commissioner Watkins, do you have anything?
Just to expand on the conversation regarding parking and that, and just to verify, it looks like Fire Marshal this list actually they are authorized for up to 18 based on that. But
the special use permits go up to
correct,
12.
correct.
So she's well within
Well within
what the fire marshal
has
thinks is
approved.
appropriate.
Pulling up maps, looking at Bighorn Overland Trail, there's no driveway access for basically a block on the east side of Bighorn Avenue. My recommendation as we discuss this, talking about setting that, would be a set staggered pickup and drop off and pickup schedule that has to be abided by, as well as that's something she can work out with the parents as they're dropping off, as well as council recommendation, as council recommended, setting a condition of having that drop off area on that section rather than around the corner to help mitigate the traffic issues. Because I can see exactly what people are talking about, and I agree. I think it's a great thing, and I'm a child of local daycare, Middleton, out of a neighborhood. That's where I would, both two parents that worked and dropped off and picked up. So there's definitely a need for it. In fact, if we can mitigate community concerns, my other thing is not something we can dictate, but my concern and my recommendation would definitely be to work with. Sounds like it's a challenge getting a hold of the HOA and to discuss that, but would definitely be to continue to definitely work forward on that, because it looks like there is some receptiveness to it from the HOA based on this email. So I think if you came in with a plan and followed set guidelines, you'd have a lot better chance of no issues down the road.
To your comment, looking at your map there, and the Bighorn side of the applicant's home, that walkway and the grass on the other side of it, shouldn't that be allowable parking for her home?
That is allowable parking, yes.
What someone was saying though is that there's always vehicles parked there that
But
don't
if they're
move.
not hers,
Yeah, they're not hers.
then she should be able to control that because it's.
Well, but it's city. I mean, it's not, it's like,
Oh, that's true.
it's
Yeah,
not
it is
some,
public-
it's
it's public
public
parking.
parking, yeah, you can't.
You can't dictate
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
but if you stipulate that as the pickup drop-off area,
Right.
I mean, there's a whole, you got a whole, be that if somebody had to, even if somebody had to park back here,
Well,
For a
and,
minute,
and
walk
can we
around.
stipulate, like, it can be no closer to the corner than 15 feet, or,
Well,
like, is
I
that
like what
applicable?
council said, park in the driveway.
And
is
if
a
not
requirement.
available,
If not, then a
they
designated
have to
spot
use
that
that.
she knows can recommend that is pretty much available. That is not gonna be impacted.
But not in the front of
bus
the
or-
house.
Commission, and this is not a legal comment, but just to try to, as I'm also staff, I guess, today, so I'll provide a practical comment. One way you could potentially achieve both a reduction in traffic and also an obligation to stagger with one condition would be to condition that all pickup and drop-off has to occur in the driveway. The consequence of that is, and if it's gonna be that specific, I recommend that you have the applicant come back up. It will require you to reopen the public testimony and provide an opportunity for anyone else in the audience to comment on that and then rebuttal. So if you decide to go this way, that's what I'd recommend to make sure that everyone gets the due process. But it would then oblige the applicant to make sure that those times are staggered so that when people are coming, the driveway is open. And I don't know if there are other cars that may park there sometimes, so it may be impossible, which is why you would need to talk to the applicant about it. But anyway, if that's the requirement, that pickup and drop off occur in the driveway, well, then you don't have kids out on the road. There's an obligation to stagger no matter how many. It looks like from the picture there's 2 spots there, so at most you'd have 2 cars there at any given time. Then you wouldn't have to get into specific scheduling obligations, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You just know that, well, I guess if someone's there early, they're not permitted to, it's inconvenient for them, but they're not permitted to let their kid out of the car unless they're sitting in that driveway. So anyway, that's just a thought.
Okay,
I
I
like
like
that.
it. Are you guys okay with reopening the public hearing?
yeah, I like,
We've never done it before, we may as well do something for a first time, right?
no, I like
Okay.
that. It's-
So we will reopen public hearing, public comment portion of the public hearing, and then I invite the applicant back up. Okay, applicant, we have a few more questions for you. Sorry, this is just a process.
No, you're
I'm just trying to make sure we do it right.
I understand.
Okay, so the question for you is, does that work for you to have the designated pickup and drop-off area only the driveway and nothing else? You have 2 spots open, you have a 3-car driveway. Could you move your car during business hours so that you have your full driveway open for your clientele?
Yes, I would be more than happy to do that.
And does that work as far as the way that your business operates right now?
Yes,
And you feel like even if you go up to 12 kids, that you could continue to maintain that?
yes. Like I said, I can assign parents a certain slot, time window, if needed, to make sure that requirement is met.
Okay, so this is gonna be a condition of your special use permit, so if you're found in violation of that, then it would violate your special use permit, correct?
If you approve the special use permit and include
And
that
that's
as a
a
condition,
condition.
then that would just be an obligation of operating the business, yeah.
Yep, so it would be something you'd have to adhere to. And then, I had one more question, but I lost it, because I'm getting old, so does anybody else have a question?
No, and just to follow up Jerome,'s comments, like I said, I think this is gonna help you mitigate a lot. Basically, every concern I've read, this could mitigate a good percentage of those concerns. Also, at the same time, probably mitigate some of the concerns of the HOA and according to the CCRs. I'm inclined hearing from some of your clients and some of the before comments. You've got a glowing reputation. Sounds like you've got a bunch of happy kids, and I like to see that. And there is a need for it in the community. I'm inclined to move with that.
And doing it right is also, speaks volumes. Sounds like there are other people in the neighborhood that have businesses that do fly into the radar. But anyway, I don't have any
Anything
additional
else?
comments.
Okay, go ahead and take a seat, and then we will see if anybody has any more public comments, and then we'll invite you back up if there are.
All right.
Okay, so would I need to have them sign again?
I would just start by asking if anyone is interested in.
Okay, is anybody interested in making any additional comments?
Specific to the condition.
Yeah, specific to this condition we're discussing.
Okay.
I just have a
Okay, you have to step up to the mic again and tell me your name. Do I need to have her sign this, or can I just?
We already have it written, so if she just says her name and
Okay.
Anderson.
Sarah Hartzheim, 356 West Hidden Meadow Way,
Okay.
and 1798 Ironstone. So I had a question about this. If everyone's in the community, and I don't have a problem parking the driveway, I'm just thinking forward to the future, because I don't want it to be a problem. If we're in the community and we stop by, either during business hours or out of business hours, I worry that someone's going to come take a picture and try to get her special use permit rescinded, which is unfair. To keep someone to only park in the driveway is at times quite confining. So I just want to be sure that we're not setting someone up for failure. I have no problem continuing to walk my son to daycare or park in the driveway. I just don't want to create a problem moving forward where we've got people that are kind of, looking to get the special use permit revoked. So I would say I'm on a bunch of board of directors too. I'm the secretary for one, so I understand how this works. I would say if we could amend it, park in the driveway, and maybe have a spot on Bighorn as a backup that they could park. But I just worry that we're setting someone up for failure if we say you can only park in the driveway, and then somebody parks in front of her house that may not even be a daycare person, and it somehow comes back and now she's losing her special use permit.
Mhm. Yeah, good point. I guess a sign that says no parking between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. like schools do, or, something like that would be helpful. But I
But
get
how
your
do you
point.
enforce
But
that?
as long as the person who's parked there is not dropping off or picking up, I don't see how it's enforceable.
Yeah, it doesn't, it shouldn't impact.
So
it,
for
right?
instance,
But you're gonna have neighbors that take
Yes.
pictures that want, yeah.
this is why I bring this up, because there's always that group that kind of stirs the pot where there's no pot to be stirred. For example, I stopped by, I had a really tough morning at work, and I stopped by this morning and I stopped to see my son. I wasn't picking up, I wasn't dropping off, I was simply stopping by to say hello. I don't get to see Tina that often. My husband takes our son to daycare. How would that be handled? I'm a neighbor stopping in to see my friend.
Yeah, you're not dropping off or picking up, so it's not part of that condition.
But again, if someone were to take a picture of me parked on the street, that could violate, because they know my car, they can say, this person was parked on the street. You see what I'm
Yeah, I
Saying
think that, go ahead.
I was thinking the same as you, designated parking place, but where it's a public roadway.
It's a city street, unfortunately.
It's a city street, you
Well,
can't
okay,
enforce it, just like the
So
HOA
you
has.
can't tell the city, I want to designate this spot.
Yes, yeah,
So that was kind of where I was going when the commissioner made that correction to me.
I mean, most
I
of
think
us
it's a
are
great idea,
neighbors.
but I don't know how you
Yeah.
do that.
I don't wanna set her up for failure, I don't wanna see us back in this room in 6 months because we're rehashing the same conversation. So, I don't know how you do that, it is a city street, you can't really dictate, who's coming or going on a city street. Like I said in my testimony before, there's RVs, boats, broke down trucks and vehicles parked all over the place and no one's policing it. The HOA should, that's my big problem with the HOA is, I love clean streets, trust me. When I move into an HOA, I wanna see no on-street parking. But unfortunately, that is just a dream and never a reality. So how do we make sure that we're setting someone up for success and not to come back in a few months with a bunch of pictures from angry neighbors?
Yeah, good point, thank you. We'll discuss
Thank you.
that. We'll see what we can do.
Commission, if I can make a quick comment,
Yep.
just for some helpful things maybe. So first, when you grant a special use permit to somebody, you're granting them a property right. And, which is to say, you're granting them a thing that you cannot then deprive them of without due process. So this is, it's not something where the city can, once you grant it, in order to take it away, there has to be a violation, there has to be evidence that demonstrates that. So that's one component. It's not something that the city can just flip on and off at will without evidence that would hold up, because it's not the same as taking a square foot of somebody's property, but for all practical purposes, it is. I shouldn't say for all practical purposes. It is, essentially that's what it is. It's an interest in real property that you're then depriving a person of that you've previously granted them. The other thing to know about the conditions of a special use permit is that it's not a contract, but it's a contract of sorts between the city and the property owner. It's not a contract between the property owner and the neighbors. So that has consequences. If the city has conditions and the city doesn't enforce them, then all of this conversation is essentially moot, because the things you try to do to mitigate against this harm aren't getting enforced because the property owners next door don't have a right to enforce it. But in the same breath, if there's concern about, well, if we make a condition that's a little bit, that's very specific, is that going to create adjudicatory problems where, there's lots of people upset about it? It may, but ultimately the city's the one that has the right to seek to enforce the conditions of the special use permit. And that would have to go through a hearing process. My understanding would be just like this one. It would essentially be a special use permit revocation hearing. It would be identical, and it'd have to be based just as this one is on facts and evidence. So that hopefully helps make it clear who has enforcement rights, and also helps make clear that the revocation of a special use permit, just like it's granting, is not something that just occurs sort of under cover of dark.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to come up? Okay, go ahead and state your name and address for the record again, please.
Autumn Marler, 1006 Overland Trail Street. So, I don't know, I understood the purpose of this was to not find that Tina is unfit for being a daycare provider. I was under the assumption that this was, is this an appropriate place for her to have, to provide the care that she does. I think that the traffic problem, I think that everybody's absolutely right, and that's what I was kind of trying to say in my original, that you can't dictate what the other neighbors are going to do, which makes that corner so hard. Maybe something that I can offer, like some advice, just like living on that street, is perhaps enforcing, I don't know if it's a law in Idaho, I know in other places it is, but enforcing not parking within a certain distance within the corner. It's a fairly sharp corner, and I talked to her before, all the way past her driveway would be a suitable place visually wise if people parked past her house this way, or about where the white car, maybe one more car length in front of it. But anywhere closer to that corner is very, very difficult for buses, for us, because other neighbors park there. So that would be maybe a suggestion. I don't, and I never intended to say that her care provided caused any problems to me personally or anything like that. So that would be a suggestion. It would just make a lot of visual things a lot better, because she can't control the sun. Also, maybe if they are her own kids, sledding off there, I would still, being a mom of 5, I would still hope that my own children playing in the front yard, which I would totally allow them to do, are safe, but they're not going to be if people are parking on the corner. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. Really quickly, so if the special use permit was approved with the condition that all of her clientele use only the driveway for pickup and drop off, does that alleviate your concerns with the parking in the front of the house and the traffic congestion because of that?
I would say yes, as long as you are also making that applicable to anybody who works for her, because oftentimes it is her, in the past, because I haven't noticed this since they've gone down in children, but in the past, I happen to know the cars, the vehicles of the people that work with her, And they are often culprits of parking on the corners, so as long as it is applicable for them as well, then yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that would be huge, huge.
Okay, because that's really what we're trying to do is, how can we approve this and
Yeah.
help everybody be okay with that?
Yes, I would agree. Like I said, I have 5 children. I've lived in this community for 7 years. I feel like the need for daycare is huge. I think she does a great job as far as I've heard, as far as I've seen. Yes, I do. I think that this safety issue, just because, and it's unfortunate, because of the placement and maybe the size of her lot, is just, that is the reason I'm here today. Has nothing to do with her as a provider.
And neither does anything that we're
We
doing
didn't
either.
hear any of that in your
Yeah.
comment, so
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
worries here.
So we
I
don't get to make a
I felt like
decision
maybe
based
there was
on
a
that
little
either.
defense, and I just,
No.
I don't think that
No,
it's
I-
bad. But the
What I heard were your
situation,
concerns for safety.
yeah, the situation is, it's a huge safety issue. I'm also worried for the city if, and I'm assuming this would kind of come back to the city, if a bus hit a child. Like I said, there's buses twice a day, and then sometimes there's 2 buses twice a day if she happens to have a student there. And just having an extra car on the street, and she can't control the neighbors, and they already have cars,
Yeah.
you know?
So but you agree that if our stipulation was that drop off and pick up and staff utilize certain areas to park
Absolutely,
as part of the condition, that would satisfy your concerns?
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, applicant, do you want to come back and rebut anything? You have to step up to the podium if you do.
I just have a
Yep,
question.
talk when you get up to the podium.
Because Sarah brought up a great point, because I do have a teenage son that has friends that come and visit, and they do, also I've noticed them park along that street or around the corner as well. So like Sarah was mentioning, if, someone takes a picture of that, how can I prove my case that they were not a part of the daycare? I mean, is that going to?
I would just tell your kids' friends to not park there.
Yes, I will do that. I'll
I
tell the
have
parents
kids too,
just
that have
yeah.
friends that come over with cars and bikes and scooters and, so I would just have that as your rule. My dentist, Middleton dentist, has a sign up on their front door that says, the parking lot you just parked in isn't ours. Your car may be towed. You need to go park back there. That's our parking lot. So, I mean, there's things that you can do as a business owner, right? Because that's what you are in your home. You're operating a business out of your home. As a business owner, that's what you can do to make sure that you're operating your business the way that you should operate it based upon the conditions that are being put on you, or, may be put on you. It's like you have to figure out, how am I gonna work within the constraints? You're already doing that. You're already here trying to follow the rules, so you might have some other rules you have to follow, and that's just what you need to do as a business owner.
And
So
I'm-
just tell people, you can't park in front of my house. Put a big sign on your door. If you parked in front of my house, go back out and move your car. Whatever you have to do.
And ongoing compliance, and I've seen it before, one of those little A-frame type signs, it says something to the effect, picks up and dropped off or driveway only, or something to that effect. So it's a constant reminder to the people, if they get in a hurry or whatever.
Now, one thing I will, again, this is just reading from your CCNRs, and you said, unfortunately, in West Highlands, this is something I have personal experience with, they don't allow signage in front of the homes.
Not even during business hours?
During business, because there's no businesses allowed.
Well,
So even if you're there during business hours, you can't put signs out in the home. That's just if they're gonna enforce it or not.
but if they don't
So-
enforce the stranded cars, you may not be,
Right.
Can I put
My-
cones around my
Yeah,
corner?
I mean,
And-
I don't know, like
And this is,
caution tape.
yeah,
Flagger.
yeah, now this is just comment, I understand concerns as well, and as council said, we can't really enforce anything, this, that, the other, and I understand it's not just you, and we wanna, but like I said, the main concern is if we do grant this based on conditions, nobody can just come and snatch it away from you. It has to be documented, it has to be set, there has to be a hearing for it. So everything that we're taking into consideration now will be taken into consideration then. So I understand the concerns, I understand the public's concerned with it. But again, as a business owner, I'm a business owner myself, I know a couple of us up here are or have been. Sometimes you have to go above and beyond, and that is kind of just taking that extra little step to be, hey, you know, here's where we're at. Kids, you know, just don't park here, please. Do me a solid, you know. And then just staff, you know, like I said, we'll put that conditionally, you know, staff, if you do end up having staff again, which I hope you're successful enough, and I hope you do. But you say, hey, unfortunately, you know, I used to work at a place where I had to park almost a half mile from my office, and I had to hoof it every morning. And that was just unfortunately the nature of where I worked and how I had to do, because I had to leave that parking out for customers and for this, that, and the others. So again, if we do approve this, we do approve it based on conditions. If we agree on it, it's something that, yeah, there's always going to be stuff out there, but if it is granted, nobody's just going to come and rip it away from you either. That's the nature of the process.
People come to visit.
Yeah.
You come to visit long, you don't bring your car.
Or just you have business hours, right? So people will know what your business hours are and whether they can park in front of your house or not at that time. So that's just, you're gonna be under a little bit of a kind of spotlight because of this special use permit, and you just have to work within the parameters of that. Okay, all right. Thank you. We will close it.
Yes. Just closing public comment.
Correct.
Closing the public comment section,
Yeah.
go back to 7:27 PM. Okay, so we know we want to put some conditions on the,
I'll just throw out a recommendation
Okay.
for, approve the application by Christine Curry for special use permit to operate the licensed daycare center from her home located on 1151 Overland Trail, Middleton, Idaho. Based on conditions of approval, all pickup and drop-offs have to occur in the driveways attached to her home. And ensure times are staggered. I think are the two things that we talked about. I don't know if you want to add something in there for
I
trying
think
to
in the
work at
staff.
busing time.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because if they're coming in and out of the driveway, it shouldn't, you know, it shouldn't matter, the buses. But we do want to, also that all staff
Yeah.
would park down, whatever that street is, Bighorn or whatever.
Okay.
So, yeah. So are we gonna make a motion? Was that a motion?
I can, unless you want to take a stab at it.
Commission.
Or you
Yes.
go right ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
He's council.
I want to
has-
make sure, we need to make sure that we have language that we can convert for that FCO that is
Okay.
exactly what you want articulated. So I have one of these down, which is that all vehicular pickup and drop-off shall occur in the paved apron located in front of the three-car garage on the property.
Okay,
And I think that, the objective was that that obligation would address the staggering because it obligates staggering.
yep.
And then I heard a condition about parking, and it sounded like
Your staff.
for staff, that it be on essentially Bighorn Avenue, away from the corner. And so looking at the overhead of the property, it's a little difficult to articulate that exactly.
Could they
In a
park
way.
in an adjoining street or, you know, spot that is not by her property, like it's not, like across the street from her property or
think-
something like that?
Maybe, the problem with having an affirmative obligation that they park in a set spot is that if for some reason it was full,
Well, just
Yeah.
somewhere that isn't in front of her house,
So-
like doesn't adjoin her property.
if we make it a negative, which is that that no staff is permitted, to park on the, on the radial of the, what are these streets? Overland Trail Street and Bighorn Avenue intersection.
The council would want to give it like a distance setback, say like if they figure like a car length.
So that's what I'm shooting for here. The radial is, of course, that portion of a curve that is defined by a radius turning. And so if you say you cannot park on the radial, then what that generates is essentially right angles.
Yeah.
Wherever the curve starts, you can't park beyond that point. And when the curve stops, you can park beyond that point. So that would keep staff from parking between when the road starts to turn, no more staff parking. And when it stops turning, staff parking can resume without creating an obligation that they park, for example, in front of the southwest neighbor's house or something, right?
This right in front of her house would technically be an allowable parking spot then, in front of the house, because it's not the corner.
If you look at the
Yeah.
overhead, if you look at the overhead, there's a pretty good, so if they came back to the radial, it'd be like all the way over here.
Okay,
Or like back here from like, I mean, it sets
Okay,
back a good,
so
it sets back a good car.
so
length.
someone could not park in front of the house, because
Yeah,
that's
you'd be-
technically the radial.
Yeah, because you'd be
There's not a
basically
car
on the
length
driveway.
there.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's not gonna be, if you wanna do on the radial or on Overland Trail Street, that would essentially, that's another way you could fix it.
okay.
But then, of course, if they wanna park further down Overland Trail Street, now we're covering more than we had intended to. So it is the nature of trying to come up with a special use permit criteria or conditions so a commercial enterprise can operate in a residential neighborhood. It's not going to be exact, but it does appear from the overhead that if you prohibit parking on the radial, that you will not have any cars parked in the places that we've heard concerns about visibility. Whether or not a car could squeeze in on Overland Trail Street right in front of the driveway, further, that car is clearly parked partially on the curve.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to pull forward another car length and sort of be overhanging the driveway, a little bit of grass on the off the radial, maybe. I don't know exactly, but it's going to at least, without hitting more than you intend to, it's going to hit at least the high concern point. Anyway, and this is not a recommendation. I'm just trying to talk through this condition so we know exactly.
Seems that if we say something like 20 feet either side of the radial on Bighorn or Overland, would that satisfy what it is we're, but that makes it pretty specific, so what if somebody's gonna go out with a tape measure? And I just don't know how in the world you're gonna stipulate the distance without.
I'm inclined to agree with council, that we're just looking at the overhead. When you
radial.
look at the overhead, the radial, it's ambiguous terminology. It takes care of, I think, most of the issues that we're looking at as far as coming around that corner with buses and everything else. And it gives the most leeway.
So how would you phrase it?
Basically say, no parking within the radial of the corner, the radial turn on Bighorn Overland.
Is that the technical term for that? Is it radial or?
I don't know in traffic engineer land if it is. I know a radial, my understanding is a radial is defined as that path dictated by a fixed length swinging from a pivot point, right? So a radius is the radius is the measurement between a center point and the exterior point. A radii is one of those particular points, and the radial is the pathway. So what I have here is no staff parking is permitted on the radial of the Bighorn Avenue intersection, Overland Trail Street. Sorry, Bighorn Avenue and Overland Trail Street intersection.
Yeah.
And I think
That
that
sounds good.
that condition in particular, along with this conversation, gives the applicant notice. I don't think that the applicant's going to be confused about what the obligation is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be sufficiently clear, and also the applicant doesn't have to go out with a tape measure. Just tell staff, don't park on the curve,
Yeah.
yeah,
right? And
Yeah.
then they pull up, they don't park on the curve, and if there are complaints, then the applicant can either come back and fight it or can say, hey, park it 1 foot further away from the thing that you think the curb is, right? So anyway, I think it is succinct, but also provides sufficient clarity that it can be complied with.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I like it.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, but I'm not quite sure on your language, so I'll refer to it generally, and if you can provide the exact. Is that okay?
Yeah, let me just read the two, just so that it's in the record here what the two conditions are.
Okay.
One of the conditions discussed was that all vehicular pickup and drop-off shall occur within the paved apron located in front of the three-car garage on the property, so the driveway. And no staff parking is permitted on the radial of the Bighorn Avenue and Overland Trail Street intersection.
Sounds good. So I'll make a motion then to approve the application by Christina Curry for special use permit to operate a licensed daycare center from her home located at 1151 Overland Trail, Middleton, Idaho, in the Westlands Highlands Ranch subdivision. On the conditions as stated, I will try it again, but basically the conditions about the driveway and the radial.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Christiansen, a second by Commissioner Watkins. All those approve, say aye. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, so that
Do we need to say
motion
that's unanimous?
carries.
Do we need to say that's unanimous?
It's unanimous, so
Okay.
it
Close
carries.
close
Close the
hearing.
public hearing at 7:36 PM. Do we need a little bit of a
Bio would be
intermission? Go ahead.
good. A bio break would be good.
Yeah.
Are we pausing?
Okay, we'll take a quick 5-minute break. Be back at 7:41.